Hi, sixth graders. So today we are going to talk about evaluating expressions. So before we start talking about how to evaluate expressions, there are a few vocabulary terms that we need to discuss. So first is an expression. So an expression, when we're talking about an expression, we're not talking about, the look on your face, like your happy expression or a sad expression. An expression in math is a number sentence that has at least two numbers and at least one operation. So that means like adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So that is an expression. Another thing that we need to know is the term evaluate. So to evaluate something just means to solve it. Another term that we need to know is the term variable. So a variable is a letter or a symbol that represents a number. And this number, because it's being represented by a letter or a symbol, it's unknown. We don't know what that number is. And finally, we need to know the term substitute. Now, I'm not talking about like a substitute teacher. I'm talking about substitute in math. So to substitute means to replace a variable with a given number. So these are four vocabulary terms that we'll need to know while we're working with our evaluating expressions. So let's look at this first set. So we can see that our directions say evaluate the following expressions for x equals 6. So let's break that down. Evaluate or solve the following expressions, the number sentences, for x equals 6. So x is our variable. And we're going to be substituting that variable, x, in each expression with the number 6. So if we look at number 1, we have 7x. And what that means is 7 times 6. So we took away the x and we plugged in or substituted the number 6. And then we can evaluate. 7 times 6 equals 42. And then we have number 2, x over 3, or x divided by 3. So if we plug that in, we have 6 divided by 3. And then we can evaluate or solve, and that would equal 2. Number 3, we have 29 minus x. So we'll write out our expression, 29 minus, and then we'll substitute our variable for 6, and then we can evaluate. So 29 minus 6 equals 23. Number 4, we have 36 over x, or 36 divided by x. So we'll rewrite our expression and then substitute our variable with 6 and evaluate. 36 divided by 6 equals 6. Now sometimes we'll have an expression like number 7. where we have two operations. So we have, in this one, we have 3x plus x. So that means that we have 3 times 6 plus 6. So if we remember our order of operations, we start with multiplication. So we have 3 times 6, which is 18. And then plus 6 more gives us 24. Now, sometimes we will have two variables, like in our next section. So let's take a look at the instructions for this section. It says evaluate the following expressions for b equals 2 and c equals 7. So we'll evaluate or solve the expressions, the number sentences, by substituting the variables b and c for the numbers 2 and 7. So let's take a look at number 9. So we have 5 plus b plus c. So we will substitute our variables. So we have 5 plus and b equals 2 plus c, which equals 7. And then we can add to get 14. If we look at number 10, we have 16 plus b minus c. So we'll substitute our variables, 16 plus b, which equals 2, minus c, which equals 7. So 16 plus 2 is 18, minus 7 equals 11. And let's skip number 11 and let's go to number 12. So we have 9b plus c. So anytime you see a number directly next to a variable like this, it just means that we're multiplying. When we're using variables, we do not use the multiplication symbol because it looks too much like the letter X and can be confused for a variable. So we have 9 times b, which is 2, minus c, which is 7. And if we use our order of operations, we have 9 times 2 equals 18 minus 7, which equals 11. And let's look at 13. 7c minus b. So 7 times c. Another way we can show this is to put the variable inside parentheses so we don't get confused with an x and a multiplication symbol. So 7 times c, or 7, minus b, or 2. And then we can evaluate. 7 times 7 is 49, minus 2 is 46. And let's look at the last set. Evaluate the following expressions for y equals 8 and d equals 4. So these ones are getting a little bit more complicated. So let's take a look. We have number 17, 6y over d. So 6 times y, which equals 8, over d. Or that also means divided by d, which is 4. So if we multiply first, we have 6 times 8. So 6 times 8 will give us 48, and then divided by 4. And if we divide 48 by 4, we get 12. So our final answer for 6y over d, or 6y divided by d, when we substitute y for 8 and d for 4, we get 12. And let's skip 18 and we'll go to 19. this time. So we have y times d divided by 2. So y is 8, d is 4, and then divided by 2. So if we multiply 8 times 4, we get 32. And then we have to divide by 2, which gives us 16. So that is evaluating expressions. So remember, we have our 4 vocabulary terms: expression, a number sentence that has at least 2 numbers and at least 1 operation. Oops, I made a typo in there. It should say numbers. Evaluate, meaning to solve it. Variable, a letter or a symbol that represents a number. It's unknown. We don't know what the number is. And substitute, to replace a variable with a given number. And also remember that if you see 2 numbers directly next to each other, or a number directly next to a variable, for example, if you see 3x, all that means is 3 times x. We don't put in that multiplication symbol when we're working with variables because it can look a lot like a variable, like the variable x. So another way we can show that is if we, let's say that we substitute x for 2, we can say 3 and 2 in parentheses. Since those 2 are directly next to each other, we know that it's multiplying. All right, 6th graders, I know that variables and expressions can be a little bit tricky, so please let me know if you have any questions. Have a fantastic rest of your day.